Welcome back to Mindset Devil. There's a war going on behind the walls of a prison most people never see, and right now it's swallowing one of the most controversial names in music history. R. Kelly was rushed to the hospital after collapsing from what prison officials are calling a medical overdose. But his lawyers are telling a very different story. They say someone is trying to kill him, and this overdose, it wasn't an accident. You may not like him. In fact, you may hate everything his name stands for. But what if I told you there's a plot happening behind bars right now that sounds like something out of a government thriller, and the target is a man the public already decided was guilty of everything? Before we go deeper, let's rewind. R. Kelly, once known as the king of R&B, is now inmate number 9,62735, serving a 30-year sentence for racketeering and sex trafficking. In 2022, he was hit again, convicted on federal charges for child exploitation and pornography. Add another 20 years to his name, served concurrently. For most people, the story ended there, canceled, forgotten, locked up for good. But prison has its own rules. And for someone like R. Kelly, prison isn't just time, it's a battlefield. Back in 2020, before his conviction, he was attacked by another inmate in Chicago's Metropolitan Correctional Center. His lawyers begged the courts for protection, saying he wasn't safe.
Attorneys for singer R. Kelly are asking for his immediate release from prison, claiming that federal officials plotted to have him killed. He is serving a 30-year sentence for racketeering and sex trafficking. In an emergency filing today, his attorneys outlined what they called a cover-up.
These are people who seek to kill Mr. Kelly rather than allow the corrupt criminal conduct of those who manufactured his convictions be exposed.
Their motion alleges that the feds solicited a convicted sex trafficker who was Kelly's cellmate here in Chicago to steal correspondence between Kelly and his attorneys. They further claim the Bureau of Prisons transferred a leader of the white supremacist group to Kelly's prison in North Carolina with instructions to kill Kelly. That leader has a long history of filing lawsuits against the government and the Bureau of Prisons. We have reached out to prison officials and the U.S. Attorney's Office. So far, no response.
It looks like the threat has evolved from random attacks to something far more organized and far more deadly. According to brand new court documents, Kelly collapsed in his cell at the Butner Federal Correctional Institution in North Carolina. He says he was feeling faint, dizzy, started seeing black spots, tried to stand up, and dropped to the floor. Crawled to the cell door before losing consciousness.
The artist, whose legal name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, was rushed to the hospital last week after allegedly overdosing on sleep and anxiety medications given to him by prison staff. In court documents, lawyers for the singer allege that staffers at the federal prison are trying to kill him. He is serving a 20-year sentence after being convicted of racketeering and sex trafficking in 2021.
Joining us now, NBC's Shaquille Brewster with the latest. So, Shaq, what specifically are R. Kelly's lawyers alleging here?
Hi there. Well, you listed that big claim from his team, essentially that prison officials are trying to kill him in order to cover up misconduct. And this really all goes back to filing an emergency motion from his team last week in which they asked the judge to release him from prison and move him to home confinement. It was in that document where they had a declaration from an inmate who signed a statement saying that the official transferred him to Kelly's prison with instruction to kill the singer who is behind bars again on those sex-related crimes. In a filing this morning, R. Kelly's team released a statement, or had a line in there that said, now prison officials have overdosed Mr. Kelly on medications and nearly killed him 2 days after he made those allegations public. So they are trying to get a judge to release him and move him to home confinement, and that's part of the claim and part of the argument that they're using to this judge, saying that something happened as recently as this past week.
And how is the other side, the prosecutors in this case, how are they responding?
Yeah, from the original documents and from that original motion, they pushed back fairly aggressively, calling the claims deeply unserious and theatrical, a fanciful conspiracy. It said it makes a mockery of the harm suffered by Kelly's victims. I want to read a line from their reply motion to some of those original claims in which they say Kelly refuses to accept responsibility for years of sexually abusing children and is using this court's docket to merely promote himself despite there being no legal basis to be before this court. They're also making a legal argument that essentially the court that Kelly's team filed this emergency motion in front of, they don't have jurisdiction to do anything in North Carolina where Kelly is being held.
All right, Shaq Brewster with the latest. Thank you.
That's when staff rushed in and found him unresponsive. They loaded him on a gurney and took him by ambulance to Duke University Hospital. But here's where things get weird. During that ambulance ride, Kelly says he overheard a prison officer whisper, "This is going to open a whole new can of worms." Once at the hospital, doctors allegedly told him he'd been given a life-threatening dose of his medication, an overdose that could have killed him. He stayed in the hospital for 2 days before being returned to solitary confinement. But his lawyers say this wasn't just a mistake. They say it was part of a larger plot, a plot to bury R. Kelly behind the walls without ever letting him walk free again. The filing claims 3 federal prison officials tried to recruit another inmate to assassinate him. That inmate, Mikael Glenn Stein, a terminally ill member of the Aryan Brotherhood. Stein says he was offered a deal, murder Kelly, and in exchange he'd be granted a chance to escape custody and live out his last days free. According to Stein, once he arrived at Kelly's facility, the threats became real. He says prison staff reminded him, "You need to do what you came here for." But here's where it takes an unexpected turn. After spending time around Kelly, Stein says he couldn't go through with it. Instead, he confessed the entire plot to R. Kelly himself. He even signed a sworn statement about the plan. Kelly's attorneys now say this wasn't a one-time offer, that more Aryan Brotherhood members are showing up at the prison, that more of them have been approached, and that one of them will eventually finish what Stein refused to do. They're calling this cruel and unusual punishment, and they're begging the court to place Kelly on home detention for his safety. But federal prosecutors, they're not buying it. They responded with a hard no, saying, Kelly is a prolific child molester. He is unapologetic. He has never taken responsibility and probably never will. They called the entire motion a joke, a mockery, an attempt to play victim in a situation where they believed he was the predator all along. But here's the real question. If someone is trying to kill R. Kelly behind bars, do we care? Or have we already decided that whatever happens to him in prison, he deserves it? Is this overdose just another chapter in a long list of manipulation tactics from a man who once sang his way out of controversy? Or is it the sign of something real, a conspiracy we'd all rather ignore because we don't want to feel sympathy for someone we once danced to but now despise? Love him or hate him, you can't ignore this. Somebody powerful wants R. Kelly dead, and that overdose might not be the last attempt. So what do you think? Is this real danger or real manipulation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's have this discussion.